Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 3 preview. If you've been with us before, you know how it goes. We break down all the games over 4 different segments. A reminder to all of you watching us, of course, on YouTube Live, that they're also available as 4 separate podcasts wherever you get yours. You can also check out our Thursday Night Football preview podcast. We have both Giants and 49ers beat writers giving their views on the New York-San Francisco game at 1:20 a.m. on Friday morning, alongside Brian and Andrew Morgan. We start with the first slate of games from the early Sunday evening window. This preview is brought to you by RuPoint, demonstrating the value of global PR and communications. And you can see how RuPoint can help your business at rupoint.com. We start this week with the first game in the early Sunday window, and that is Falcons at Lions. Colm, Falcons looking really good this season. We talked about Bijan Robinson and the difference that he's made. We've talked about the scheming of the man who would be king, Arthur Smith, with his Brewster's millions sitting waiting to be inherited once he finishes up in his coaching career. How do you see this one going against the Lions?
This one, Connor, in this week, I'm going with 80s songs as a theme. And for me, this is We Built This City. Because what you are looking at here is the lyric that came to mind was knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. And you have, obviously, in terms of biting kneecaps, you have Dan Campbell. And I think that both of these teams have shown over the last little while that they are very capable of, getting into a dogfight and occasionally coming through it. And to me, I think this is going to be a very interesting game because on one side you have obviously what can be an explosive offense, and on the other side, obviously, probably alongside the 49ers, the most efficient and exciting running offense in the entirety of the league. So to me, a kind of clash and contrast of styles in some ways. I think this will come down to if the Falcons can get pressure on Jared Goff, because Goff is absolutely phenomenal when he is clean in the pocket. But the issue with Goff is when you can get pressure on him. And the fact that the Seahawks were able to get pressure last week, when you're looking at, just the Seahawks pass rush isn't exactly terrifying, and yet they were able to get some pressure on him. And the other thing is the Seahawks were really good when they lined up in 12 and 13 personnel. And the Falcons have the ability to do that. Now, when they line up with 2 tight ends, they don't always pass to the tight end. Very often Bijan gets the ball, but what an option to have in Bijan Robinson. I think this could be one of the games of the weekend, but I'm going to go with the Falcons because I think the momentum is with them, and I'm nervous about it because I think Goff is a better QB than Ritter, but ultimately that is what I'm calling it. What about you, Brian?
It's a tasty one, and it's a tricky one to call, and I'm still torn. I've been torn all day when I was doing my notes for this one. I see you have happy paws on. I thought it was happier, and one of these teams is going to be happier. If the Falcons win, they'll be 3-0 for the first time since 2007. There'll be a happy lot going back down to Atlanta, Georgia after the game. I was looking at the Goff stuff because people are saying the monkey's off his back. He'd got 384 passes before he was intercepted, and people are saying the pressure will be off. Man, there was a bit of focus on that last week. How much he's taking care of the ball. I don't really buy too much into it. I just looked at the reality. Desmond Ritter's playing really well in 2 games. I mean, he threw for 225 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. He's complimented by a great run team. But I asked myself, if the one thing the Lions do at home, even if they lose, they tend to put up big numbers. They're always in the 30s. Like we saw last week, they lose in overtime, 36-31. No, I'll go with Lions. It's a tight one, but I think the Lions inevitably on offense will put up too much, and I don't know whether the Falcons can live with them. And it's the battle of the 2 running backs from the first round. Let's bear that in mind. Jameer Gibbs will obviously have a piece to say on this because Bijan's getting all the credit after the first 2 weeks. Gibbs hasn't been used or utilised in the same levels, which in which Bijan has been used, but Montgomery's carrying an injury. You might see more Gibbs on Sunday. I think Gibbs, the rookie, will come out the right side of it, and the Lions win and get back on the winning trade and go to 2-1.
Yeah, and I suppose that it will be intriguing. And the next game is another intriguing matchup because it is Bills at Commanders. And Connor, what are your thoughts on this one?
Sorry, I had to go to the blue tent there for a moment. A little bit of an injury timeout, a tech injury. I had a torn connection to the browser for some reason, but I'm back in the game now.
I want to hear Connor's pick on this one, Colin. I know Colin's gone Falcons, I've gone Lions. I wanted to hear you before we move on to the next one. Colin, where are you going on this tasty one in Detroit?
I'm going Falcons on this one. I think the Falcons are rolling at the moment. I think they benefit of probably a slightly handy schedule, but the Packers game kind of showed me an awful lot about what you expected to see and what we wanted to see from the Falcons this season. It showed that they have a lot of different dimensions to the running attack. Some of the free agent signings that they brought in on the defensive side of the ball, which maybe would have been one of the bigger question marks heading into the season, I think are starting to pay off. They piled up an awful lot of offense against the Packers. I thought that was really impressive. They hit them from different angles, as we were saying. It's almost like they wore them down with body shots. It wasn't necessarily that they were relying on Ridder to do anything spectacular. And I still think, ironically, he's probably the Achilles heel of the team. You know, they'll go as far as he takes them. Yeah, I guess you could say that's true of all 32 teams in one way, shape, or form or another regarding their quarterback. But provided they can keep... And they got a lot out of the likes of Jonnu Smith and others who've kind of not necessarily been the ones that we expected to carry the offense, but showed up quite well in that game last week, which tells me Smith is really cooking up something interesting there. He's finding ways to take the load off Ridder's shoulders. He's finding ways to make it difficult for defensive coordinators to come up with a plan to stop them. They're not necessarily the most spectacular team unless Bijan gets the ball, but I can see them taking advantage of a Lions team that started the season really well with that win over the Chiefs, but maybe not going to have quite enough to slow that Falcons team down. So I'm going Falcons for this one. Commanders. Following up with Bills Commanders now. Again, like as we were saying with the Bills Raiders game last time out, the Bills have made their money over the last couple of seasons by taking care of all the teams that you expect them to take care of. I think, Commanders coming off the back of that morale boosting comeback win last week, you'd expect them to be in good fettle, and they've probably shown up a little bit better than most people. Colin accepted. Colin, you were pretty high on them in the offseason, in fairness, and had called out this season as maybe being one where we'd see the Commanders surprise a lot of people. So far, that's exactly what they've done. But it's a big hill to get over the Bills. I think Josh Allen had that reset following week one where hero ball maybe got him into a little bit of trouble. I think he's back where you need him to be. I think they're back where you need them to be. I see them taking care of business against this Commanders team.
I mean, they're favorites and they'll be favorites for a reason. And what you saw Josh Allen do last week is exactly, we talked about it on Tuesday show, it's exactly the kind of response that he needed. And there was, far less of the hero ball. There was occasional moments of madness, but you need that. But this will be a great test, I think, for both of these teams, because for the Commanders, it's going up against a very good team. I think they have played two meh teams thus far. I'm calling this one Together in Electric Dreams, because I think for both of these sides, Josh Allen can be absolutely magnificent. And I think the combination between Howell and Bieniemy, Howell has a much better arm than many of the other kind of QBs who you might think to put him in the same tier as. I think he's a better arm than Kenny Pickett. I think he's a better arm than Mac Jones. And I think what separates him from a lot of the other rookie QBs, I know he played one game last year, he makes good decisions. He doesn't panic. And I think I'm going to go with the Bills, because I had Josh Allen as my MVP and I had the Bills as the division winners. But it is not going to be easy going into DC and trying to get a result against this Commanders team.
Brian, one thing that might give me pause for thought in going too deep in saying that the Bills will take care of business here is the performance of that Commanders defense. There were times when you saw Montez Sweat and Chase Young really looking back to their lethal best. At one stage, I think both of them hit Russell Wilson with a gang tackle against the Broncos last week. This is a battle of two very spicy defenses. The Bills, who we expected to be really good, the Commanders, who we thought might get there, and so far have really shown up on that side of the ball. It could get bloody in Maryland.
It could, but I'd also flip it and say the secondary of the Cardinals last week. Sorry, not the Cardinals. Commanders. Cardinals for later. That's for the witching hour. But no, like last week we saw the Commanders be exposed in the secondary by Russell Wilson a number of times. The Jerry Jeudy touchdown, and there was the high baller that went in for the touchdown as well. So I think there's frailties there. I think they'll be got at, and then obviously the one at the end, which was the fairness was it was a Hail Mary in a sense. But for me, I'm looking at two defense. I know Josh Allen, we know what we're going to get from Josh Allen on Sunday. We got Josh Allen last week, which we like to see, which was 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He goes out and plays the A game. But what's been lost in the 2 games for me so far is how well the Bills defense has played. People say, okay, it was only the Raiders last week. They only gave up 10 points. But the previous game against the Jets, I know, again, the argument is it was only Zach Wilson. But for 17 points the first game, I give up on the special teams touchdown because that's not really related to the defense. And then 10 points last week. Defense is playing strong. They've had turnovers. This is a bit of a measuring stick game for Howard in terms of where he is in his progression after 2 weeks. He has played well, but this is a real test. But I'd be more sold on the Bills coming out and winning this game. I think this is one that the Bills, and like we said last week, these are the type of games, because they have come out with 11, 12 wins, these are the games at the nature of the season they go and beat these teams convincingly. I'm not sure it'll be convincingly on Sunday, but I think they'll have more than enough to get over the line against this Commanders team.
Colin, I'll tell you what is a measuring stick game at the weekend for the Broncos is that visit to Miami. It's going to be hot down there. There's nothing worse than sitting on that sideline on a sweaty September day, the visiting sideline that is, directly in the glare of the heat. The heat has definitely been on Sean Payton, given the way that the season started, and on Russell Wilson, particularly after giving up that big lead last weekend. Can the Broncos cause an upset in Miami for you?
They can, and it is, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a wily Sean Payton can orchestrate it. The problem is he doesn't have Dennis Allen and that Saints defense anymore. He has Vance Joseph, and that is probably one of the more baffling decisions that Sean Payton made in the offseason, or since he was appointed head coach, was to bring Vance Joseph in. I label this one Eric Carmen's Hungry Eyes, if people remember that one, because both of these teams have shown that the Broncos refused to rebuild, and they had any number of draft picks in the top 5 at times, top 10, but they kept chasing the QB, kept going after it rather than resetting, and they are paying the price for it now. And we all should remember the fact that this is a Miami team who were stripped of draft picks because the owner decided he wanted to pick up the phone to Thomas Brady. It's difficult to see the Broncos having the wherewithal to stop a Dolphins offense that can be explosive. And Vance Joseph is not Bill Belichick. Belichick did a really good job of slowing this Dolphins side. If it was in Denver, maybe I'd have a little more confidence. I don't. It's the Dolphins for me.
Brian, as Colin said, Belichick did a really good job last week, particularly taking away the deep threat of Tyreek Hill. Christian Gonzalez certainly helping out there, the rookie cornerback on the Patriots defense. One of the more interesting subplots to this game, of course, is Vic Fangio going up against Russell Wilson and the Broncos, and he'll definitely be looking to cook something up on that side of the ball to slow their march.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what he has planned for the Broncos. It'll also be interesting to see how he's going to utilize Bradley Chubb in this game, obviously going up against his old team as well. 11 tackles so far, no sacks this season, but they are getting their fair share of sacks. They got quite a few on Herbert, in particular in the fourth quarter of the first game. And obviously there was a few on Mac Jones last week. I mean, the Dolphins are playing complementary football on both sides of the ball. I know people suggest that they gave away a lot of points in the opening game, but Chargers and the offense that they have should be doing that on most teams in the league. And then you look at this offense, I mean, it's like a steam train. Like you look at Tua as the leading quarterback in the in the league right now after 2 weeks. It's quite similar to where they were last year. And then you've got Tyreek Hill, 255, 3 touchdowns. Two is over 715. And Colin was going to touch on there. Sean Payton, and you touched on it yourself there. The craftings of Sean Payton to go in and try to slow this offense down. And Belichick did it for large parts last week, but ultimately you've still got complementary players like Mostert now running the ball effectively. All week I was leaning Broncos. Genuinely, I saw a scenario. It reminded me of, as I said earlier on the week, that game when they went into Dallas. But as I look at the numbers and I look at I've watched the highlights of the Dolphins, I just don't see it. I've changed. I've completely gone the other way. I'm going to go with the home team, the favorite, and that is the Dolphins.
If I'd switched off the game last week after 3 quarters, I might be a little bit higher on the Broncos to maybe cause that upset this week. I just, like you, Brian, I'm struggling to see it as well. And like you, Colin, I just think the Dolphins have got way too much. I think it was nice to see Russell throwing those two or three deep balls and getting back to some of the sort of highlight reel plays that we see of old. But the problem, again, as we were saying when we were wrapping up those games last week and looking at some of the talking points, is that Russell gets addicted then to trying to hit the home run ball and doesn't do the simple stuff well, doesn't hit those crossers over the middle, doesn't keep the sticks moving, and can cause difficulty for them. I think ultimately that's what helped open the door to see that comeback happen last week. And I think Dolphins are going to make it even more difficult than they had it against the Commanders a week ago. Yeah, I'm going Miami with that one. And that indeed is where we leave it for the first segment of our week 3 preview, brought to you by RuPoint, demonstrating the value of global PR and comms. You can find out more at rupoint.com.